So, what makes you, you? It sounds like a simple question, right? But the answer is, well, it's actually pretty complex. In this explainer, we're going to look through 4 totally different lenses from the world of psychology to try and understand the very blueprint of our personality. But first, let's kick things off with a little puzzle. Think about a single event, a surprise, a challenge, maybe a setback. How is it that 2 people can go through that exact same thing and have completely, wildly different reactions? This right here is the central question that really drives the whole field of personality psychology. Okay, check out this classic example. You have Shelley and Deirdre. They both face the exact same problem. They failed an exam. Shelley just crumbles. She internalizes it, feels physically sick, totally worthless. But Deirdre? She does the complete opposite. She gets loud, makes jokes, puts on a big show. Same event, 2 polar opposite responses. So what in the world is going on here?
What we're seeing here is personality in action. It's that unique, pretty consistent pattern in the way we think, feel, and act. So to really get the difference between Shelley and Deirdre, we've got to explore the major theories that have tried to map out this inner world of ours.
Okay, let's dive right in with our first lens, and it's a big one, the psychodynamic perspective. This is the world of Sigmund Freud, and his idea was, honestly, revolutionary. He argued that who we are is being shaped by these powerful forces that are operating completely outside of our awareness, things we can't even see. Freud used this famous iceberg metaphor to explain it all. So the tiny little tip that you see sticking out of the water, that's our conscious mind. It's whatever you're thinking about right now. Just below the surface, that's the preconscious, stuff you can pull into memory pretty easily. But the real story, the massive, hidden part of that iceberg underwater, that, Freud said, is the unconscious. It's this deep, dark reservoir of our desires, our fears, our secret memories, and it's the true engine driving our personality. And inside this mind, there's this constant battle, a 3-way tug of war going on. First, you've got the id. Think of it as the little devil on your shoulder. It's primitive, it's impulsive, and it wants what it wants, right now. Then you've got the superego. That's the angel on your other shoulder. It's your moral conscience, the voice of mom, dad, and society telling you all the rules. And who's caught in the middle? The ego. It's the poor executive director just trying to satisfy the id's crazy desires in a way that the superego will sign off on, all while dealing with reality. As you can imagine, this constant fight between the id and the superego creates a ton of anxiety. So how does the ego even cope? Well, Freud said it has these secret weapons, these unconscious tricks called defense mechanisms. They're basically these clever, automatic ways our mind bends reality just enough to protect us from stress. For example, there's denial. That's when you just flat out refuse to accept a painful truth. Or think about displacement. You've totally done this, right? You have a terrible day at work, you can't yell at your boss, so you come home and you snap at your roommate for no reason. That is displacement. Your ego is just redirecting that angry impulse to a safer target. Okay, let's totally shift gears now. We're moving away from that hidden inner world and looking at 2 other powerful lenses that really battled for control of psychology, behaviorism and humanism, and they ask a fundamental question. Are we taught to be who we are, or do we choose? In this slide, it just perfectly captures that debate. On the left, you have the behaviorist view. It basically says we're a product of our environment. Personality isn't something you're born with, it's just a collection of habits you've learned over time through reward and punishment. But on the right, you have the humanists, who said, no way! They champion the idea that we aren't just passive puppets, we have free will. We have this deep inner drive to grow and become the best version of ourselves. Let's dig into that humanist view for a second, especially the ideas of a psychologist named Carl Rogers. He said we all have 2 selves. There's your real self, that's who you actually are, warts and all, and then there's your ideal self. That's the person you think you should be. And here's the kicker. When there's a huge gap between those 2, that's when anxiety and unhappiness creep in. But on the flip side, when your real self and your ideal self start to overlap, when who you are and who you want to be are pretty much in sync, that's when you hit a state of harmony. Rogers called this being a fully functioning person. You're authentic, you're in touch with your feelings, and you're living a life that feels true. So, what's the secret sauce? How do you close that gap? Well, for Rogers, it all came down to something beautiful called unconditional positive regard. It's basically love and acceptance with no strings attached. It's when people in your life value you for exactly who you are, not for what you achieve or what you do for them. Rogers believed this was the essential nutrient for personal growth.
All right, it's time for our fourth and final lens. This one, the trait perspective, takes a much more practical approach. It's less concerned with the deep why of our personality and much more focused on the what. It's all about describing the fundamental building blocks of who we are, kind of like creating a personality blueprint.
And this quest has been a real journey of simplification. I mean, it started with a guy named Gordon Allport, who literally went through the dictionary and found about 18,000 words that could describe personality traits. 18,000! Then, another researcher named Cattell used fancy statistics to boil that list down to 16 core factors. And today, most personality researchers agree that we can describe the vast landscape of human personality with just 5 core dimensions.
And here they are, the famous Big Five, often remembered by the acronym OCEAN. So first up, O is for openness. This is all about your willingness to try new things. Ask yourself, are you creative and curious, always up for an adventure? You're probably high in openness. Or do you prefer routine, the familiar and the conventional? That's on the lower end of the scale.
Next, C is for conscientiousness. Think of this as your level of organization and dependability. Are you the person whose emails are all in folders and who never misses a deadline? That's high conscientiousness. If you're more spontaneous, maybe a little messy, a little more go with the flow, you'd likely score lower. And it's probably no surprise, this trait is a huge predictor of success in work and school. E stands for extroversion, and this is one we all kind of know. It's about how sociable you are. But more than that, it's about where you get your energy. Do you feel totally recharged after a big social gathering? You're an extrovert. Or do you need to go be alone in a quiet room to recover from that same party? You're an introvert. It's not about shyness, it's about how you recharge your personal battery. Then we have A for agreeableness. This really gets at your basic emotional style and how you interact with others. Are you generally friendly, compassionate, and trusting? That's high agreeableness. Or are you more critical, analytical, and maybe even a little more competitive? That would be on the lower end. And finally, we have N for neuroticism. Now that word sounds a little intense, but it's really just a measure of emotional stability. How prone are you to negative emotions like anxiety and worry? People who score high on neuroticism tend to be more sensitive and anxious, while those who score low are generally more secure, calm, and confident, even when things get stressful. Phew! Okay, so we've looked through 4 really different lenses, right? We had the hidden unconscious conflicts, the learned behaviors from our environment, the inner drive for personal growth, and this 5-factor blueprint. So, how do we put all these pieces together?
Well, the modern view is that it's not really an either-or question. Instead, psychologists talk about something called the trait-situation interaction. And the core idea is simple. Who we are is a combination of our stable, underlying traits and the specific situation we're in at any given moment. Sure, an extrovert is generally outgoing, but they're probably not going to be the life of the party at a funeral. The context, the situation, it matters a lot.
So in the end, each lens gives us a valuable piece of the puzzle. The psychodynamic view shows us our hidden motivations. The behaviorist view reminds us just how powerful our environment is. The humanistic perspective focuses on our amazing potential for growth. And trait theory gives us a practical, useful language to actually describe ourselves and others. Each of these theories gives us a different clue about why Shelley felt sick to her stomach while Deirdre cracked jokes. Was it some deep, unconscious defense mechanism? A learned response to failure she'd picked up over the years? A big gap between her real and ideal self? Or just a simple expression of her core traits, like high neuroticism? The real answer is probably, yeah, a little bit of all of them. So after looking through all these lenses, the final question is for you. Which one helps you make the most sense of yourself?